In today's episode, we're thrilled to host Sol Noello. Sol is the General Counsel and Chief Administrative Officer at Wizeline. Sol holds a law degree from Universidad de Belgrano and a master in corporate law from UADE. She has an extensive experience in legal and administrative leadership, including her previous role as General Counsel at Globant. Based in Spain, she plays a key role in driving Wizeline corporate governance and operational effectiveness, supporting the company's growth in technology services. So, welcome to the Mentors Office podcast. It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Alvaro. Thank you for inviting me. Happy to be here.
It is great to have you. And for me, this is a masterclass and an opportunity to learn more from you. And also, I want that this initiative helps other in Wizeline and that maybe want to work at Wizeline to learn more about the company and learn to be better. And I was telling you before starting our recording, one of the reasons why I started this podcast was that in a previous experience in another company, I had one regret and was not talking more with leadership to know how could I be better, how could I create more value, to try to get tips to be better, to learn what problems did they have and how could I be of value to that. And that's why basically I created this podcast as a tool to connect with the leadership and to learn from the leadership and to align and always keep growing.
That's awesome. That's actually a great initiative. And as leaders, we're always trying to find, spaces and opportunities to connect with Wizeliners. But it's also a two-way, right, relationship, like any relationship. So we also need Wizeliners to have the proactivity to reach out as well. So it's great that you're doing this, and I'm sure that it's very useful for many of our colleagues at Wizeline.
Definitely. And yes, basically, I love podcasts. And what happened was that the CEO of that company that I no longer work at, I saw or watched his podcast with him like 3 or 5 years after I left. And I said to myself, I wished that he had told me that advice while I was working. And so I said, I need to be a tiger, not a sheep, and be proactive and do it. Why not?
Exactly. I love that.
And let's start with one question that I love, and is understanding more your path, your career, your dreams, and is looking back at the beginning when you were a child. What did you dream of becoming when you grew up? Did you have a clear career path? What you wanted to do? And did you always, was it a childhood dream to become a general counselor or a head of legal at a company? Or how was it?
It was not. And I do have colleagues that knew that they wanted to be a lawyer from early on, but that was not my case. I
Oh,
loved
really?
astronomy, so I wanted to study
Wow.
nuclear physics. But things took me on a different path. And looking back, I think that's because I enjoy challenges. So challenges and curiosity are part of what I am. And I was like so curious about what's out there and the space and, you know, um, the rules of physics. So that's why I wanted to study that. After
In
I
your
grew a
family,
little bit more.
did you have
Sorry?
astronomers? Did you have astronomers or physicists, or where did that come from? And your
No,
family?
no, I didn't. I didn't. I think it was just out of curiosity, I just loved looking at the sky, and I was always like in the roof of my house looking at the sky, and I just loved that. So that's why I wanted to study it. After a while, I changed paths to something more like like Earth-like, and I found a passion in law.
Very interesting. And when did that like change came to become? When did you realize, okay, maybe law is my thing?
Um, that was probably in the last years of high school. I was very committed to some like social projects. During my childhood, I lived in many different places, including Bolivia, including Peru, and I had the opportunity of contributing to social projects in many of these places. And I found law as a tool and as a way to help solve some of the problems that I was seeing. And then I ended up in corporate law. So it was not how it started,
A big change.
but I enjoy it a lot. And I think that we also have, as leaders, a lot of influence into helping and or contributing um, in, having even a better world, better life for for our employees. So that's what drives me forward.
Very interesting. And in that path of your career, how did you become Wiseline's general counselor and chief administrative officer? What's the story?
The story there. Well, I joined Wizeline when it was in a pivotal moment.
Okay.
It is a pivotal moment for the industry, and generally, I would say, for our customers, for all companies alike. And it's a moment where we needed to scale some, like new processes, including having the correct governance in place, but also remaining flexible and being able to shift gears quickly. And I think my experience scaling organizations and managing, high stakes situation as general counsel of a public company, and building teams and well, different things that I had the opportunity to do, um, positioned me as a good contributor in this space and in these needs that Western had.
And to get to know you a little bit better, so and so that also people at Wiseline can learn more about you, the other side from you. Why won't you tell us a fun fact from you that maybe not even your team at Wiseline knows about?
I think it was 5 years ago. I was traveling India by myself. So I was there for a month and a half, maybe traveling India. And I took a train from the north side of the country. India is a very large country, to the very south part. So I was like 36 hours in this train. And I was sleeping in, the beds in the train and so on. So it was like I don't know if fun, but surely it's not known by my team.
And why India?
Um,
Do you
I
like the food
practice.
or what?
I love the food. That's one of my favorite foods is Indian cuisine. But I've also practiced yoga for many many years. So I was there at an ashram. I was practicing yoga, and then I wanted to travel some of like the typical cultural and religious places that India has. They have one of the oldest religions in the world, and still very active. So it's something that I wanted to do for a long time.
Very interesting. Yeah, I find India also a very interesting country, and on the food, I definitely like it. And now, so talking a little bit more about your experience, your career experience. One thing that I like are companies, and I love startups. I love businesses. I love innovative companies and creating really innovative projects. And before you were in Wiseline, you played a really important role in scaling a company from 2,000 to 20,000 employees through its pre-IPO
More
process.
actually, but that's fine.
More? Okay.
Yeah.
And what were the key lessons that you learned during that process pre-IPO?
you learn a lot, and you learn a lot if you're open to learning, of course, because it's not about what happens, but also how you reflect and grow from what happens. I would say that what takes you to 2,000 employees, it's not the same that what takes you to 20,000 or 30,000 employees, for that matter. So you need to be like constantly reinventing yourself, because the rules of the game and what's needed in each stage of the company is different. And you need to be like very conscious about it, and be able to adapt fast in that respect, and know that again what took you to a certain level for the company is probably not the same that is going to take you to the next one. So it takes agility, and it takes a lot of things working together, since from communication, like all of the teams in the company, to be able to shift gears as needed as you scale. um so that's one of the, I think it seems simple, but you need to have your eyes quite open. And also sometimes you get stuck to a method because it worked, so it's difficult to let it go and change. But I've seen it in my previous life, and I've also seen it in other companies. And it's usually like that. Each stage requires a different recipe. Um,
How did
and
you how
yeah,
did you learn about that? Or how did you say, okay, now we're going to, I don't know, 20,000 or something? How do I learn
well,
about?
you usually look like at least in my case, and what I've seen, lessons are learned many times from mistakes, or you learn from doing something, it doesn't work, and then you change. um I think the important thing there is to learn fast, right? And don't be not be like stuck with an idea, and not open your mind to different alternatives. So if you ask me how did I learn that in particular, it's probably based on trying to make something work for longer than what it actually for its life, right? So probably from that, and from experience, you end up understanding that, and the next time that it happens, you adapt quicker, and you have your eyes open to identify when is the right time to change a process, to change a tool, to change a way of working, right?
So
And
you're
so you
always with that, yeah, attention or awareness of seeing if you need to change something or adapt or.
100%. And my team would say I'm always changing things, but it's good. We need to evolve. Otherwise, you just get left behind. So it's a mindset, and the best thing that you can do is enjoy it and like it. Like to be like in constant beta, always changing, and not afraid of making maybe a mistake along the way. But the worst thing that you can do is just stay still.
Very interesting. And do you think that all companies should have as a goal an IPO, or when should you have the IPO as a goal for a company?
No, I mean there are many factors to making into that decision. IPO is definitely one way um, to scale from a financial and from a market and point of view, but it's definitely not the only one. So no. I think what companies do need to have, and depending on the phase they are, is a clear exit or success strategy. Even if you're not selling your company, if and I'm talking now from founders' point of view, even if you're not selling your company, you need to know what makes your company profitable and interesting in the eyes of an investor. So that's a way to always keep relevant. But IPO is not the only path. And there are a lot of good things with an IPO there are also many disruptions in adjustments in processes in companies in everything that you need to go through to be compliant as a public company. So you need to leverage both things, the effort and the disruption and the changes that you need to go through alongside, all of the positive things. And once you do that assessment, then IPO might be, like the best path, or maybe not, and it's a different one.
Very interesting. And I want to go back to one point that you talked about, and was about learning, because you mentioned that is a very important skill, or yeah, let's call it a skill to have, especially if you want to become successful and when a company is growing and you want to make it bigger. And how do you learn? So how do you learn now? Do you use ChatGPT? Do you use books? Do you use podcasts? Or do you take university courses? How do you do it?
Well, maybe a mix of all of that. But I would say that how do you learn? First off, you need to stay curious. Ask questions not to get an answer like the answer that you're thinking about, but ask questions to learn, to get insight, and have that approach to learning as the most important thing, because then you learn from everything and you learn from experience. I That's one of my best ways to actually learn things in the field.
Okay.
But now
And
you have
do you have a journey or something? Journal, sorry, or not? Do you take
honestly,
that?
I
Okay.
do, but I don't write about what I learned there. I mean, probably from a like a very personal, like a personal growth point of view, I might, but not like very specific things like I don't know, better ways of doing or certain things.
Yeah.
But I do keep a
Right.
journal, and I
That is
actually recommend it.
yeah, that is a method that some people recommend, and I think that is very useful to keep a journal about your learning process. For example, if you're at work, what did you do the day before? Did it work or not? And write down those things that worked, that didn't work, and that way you can and put goals, and that is a good way to keep track of your success and do that metacognition of how to learn. I think that's pretty useful.
Yeah, well,
And
for that, and for solving, like when you have complex decisions to make, or many different aspects to consider into one decision, journaling for that, I find it very useful, because it helps you clear your thoughts, putting them down on paper, and make more informed decisions, which at the end of the day is what leaders do. Try to make the best decisions for our company or employees, right?
that's right. That's right. And I took a very interesting course that I actually want to recommend about how to learn faster using AI and use it as a sort of a tutor or a coach. I think it's pretty useful. It's Georgia Tech course that is called, I think, ChatGPT for Educators. Definitely recommended. And talking about
There are so many great tools out there. One that I like is Blinkst, the one that allows you
yeah,
to get the most important things of a book like in 10 or 15 minutes. That's something that I also enjoy, like, and it's something that you can just hear while you're making your coffee or something like that. So many interesting things. But again, if you don't have that openness to learn and that curiosity to actually go and look for those tools, then it's not happening. That's why I emphasize on the importance of, the attitude before the resources.
mindset, definitely. And about curiosity and the importance of curiosity, I was reading more about you, and I found something about the use of AI and how your team is using AI. And I'm curious to learn more about how do you leverage AI and an automation to enhance your legal and administrative processes, and what innovative tools have you implemented?
Well, we're doing a lot of very cool things with AI. So, like, I'm thrilled with what we're doing. But I would first say that the first thing that we do, and I encourage everyone to do when we speak about this, is to actually rethink the processes. Because if you build automation or you implement AI over a broken process, you will just have, like a faster broken process. So first, make sure that your process is well designed and it's um it's actually aligned to what you want to get out of it. And afterwards, we're implementing AI, I would say, in two main ways. One is to augment our team. So in the people processes, never, never, never have AI making any decisions, but we do augment the amount of data that we can consider when making a decision. The decision is always made, by our HR professionals. But before, you had like a limited amount of information that we could review to make those decisions. Now, implementing AI, we can consider a lot more aspects from the data that we have, from the interactions of our employees and the different data files that we have. So decisions are more accurate and consider more aspects. So that's a very cool way in which we're using it in most of our key processes at HR. And in legal, we're focusing the use of AI mostly in the interaction with our internal customers, sales, delivery, like all of our internal customers that interact with legal, because we had already implemented AI to accelerate the work of our legal counsels, such as in reviewing, identifying patterns of risk, and so forth, and also like getting metrics and trends. Trends is a very important thing to analyze with data because it allows you to predict certain behaviors or certain risks and so forth. So we've already been using that for some time, but now we're focusing in improving the user experience of our external stakeholders. So we are leveraging agents and for automated drafting of contracts for our internal stakeholders, faster approvals. So that's where we're focusing now, and we have very interesting projects in 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 the making.
And is anyone in your team creating prototypes using those new AI tools such as, I don't know, GitHub Copilot or Cursor or Lovable? Are you, yeah,
100%. All of
very
them
interesting.
should be, to be honest. But yes,
Because one
yes.
one question that one leader from another company, um, yeah, told me about was that her team, it was a product team. Her product team was, let's say, a little bit afraid and was not, yeah, how to say it, didn't feel so comfortable starting to create their new tools by themselves without relying on developers. So
Well, it
what would,
depends on the complexity. It depends on the complexity of what you're building. But look, I've done it myself with some like very simple things. And I was actually amazed on, how simple, quote unquote, it could be. Of course, then it requires what I can do is very limited, right? And it's probably not scalable. But we do leverage all the tools that are out there to be as,
yeah, but
autonomous as we can
exactly.
be.
It's a good way to create prototypes and maybe to test if, okay, that's a good idea, it's not a good idea, worth investing more or not. Very interesting. And for developers, for data analysts, and product managers working in technology, sometimes topics like legal or compliance are a little bit abstract. What would you say is one concrete action that some of these professionals could take to better integrate compliance into their daily workflow?
Well, I would say one old thing as common sense should not be overlooked. uh, mostly when handling data. And that's something that happens, during the course of projects. And it's not very difficult. So if this is something applicable to most developers. Remembering and always being conscious that data is from the customer, that data is not, ours, theirs. So being careful about where you are including that data, who could access it, where you are, inputting that data into. So that having that right mindset from the security, that would be like a security mindset. That's the most important thing that everyone should remember when working in a customer's project. And then I would say documentation. Documentation is always very key. So if the customer is asking you to change something, or if the customer is asking you to amend a previous instruction, or anything, documenting it. So it doesn't need to be a signed contract every time, but
An
having it in
email,
writing.
maybe. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So those two things I think are general things that could apply to anyone. And sounds basic, but very important. Basic is important.
Yeah, that's right. And having that, sometimes you already know about it, but you need to be reminded. And yeah, definitely
100%.
yeah, that's a really good advice that I think anyone can start applying today.
And maybe one other thing, Alvaro, and this is from the legal world, this is known, but now that you're giving me the space to share some advice with, and mostly our Wizeliners, don't put in an email what if you don't want to see in the cover of the New York Times. That's a usual quote that you hear around. Also true.
Yeah, definitely. That's as they say in software development, a really good test to make sure that it passes the quality assurance. Definitely. And there's another, I want to go to another topic that I like, and is a topic more related to leadership and leading and managing teams. And I found that you mentioned that you lead with a learn it all mindset. And you mentioned that it is composed of iterating systems, coaching leaders, and institutionalizing what works so that results are repeatable. I don't know if you could tell us a little bit more about that, and how does that look in the day to day.
100%. It all starts with curiosity. I've mentioned it many times, but I really think that that's one of the main things that we can cultivate. So, what it means to lead with a learning mindset. Um, when I say iterating, it's trying, right? Like and what that's also part of what I mentioned of always being in beta, trying things. We always need to have like an assessment before going out there, but don't expect it to be perfect to be out there, right? Try it out, iterate, improve, learn, improve. That would be my approach to things. I once heard, I don't remember who mentioned this, but it was not me, um, who said that the reason for his success, and this was someone in a leadership role, and I'm sorry that I don't remember who, but the reason for his success is that when people are going out there after doing the review, he had already gone out there, made 3 mistakes, and learned the best way to do it. So it's a mix. It's in between there with a balance, but don't expect it to be perfect to go out there and iterate, and don't be afraid of failure, because failure is one way to improve and things and to learn. And then from the leadership side of things, help people think and find the answers or the solutions. Don't just go out there and say this is the way that it needs to be done, but also help people build that muscle. in getting the thought motion in place to find the answers. So I would say that's also an important thing
And how do you
in my
coach
approach.
leaders?
Well, that way, mostly that way. I think it's important to talk more and listen, talk less and listen more when it comes to coaching leaders, and also, make questions more than give answers. Make questions that help people think and come to their own conclusion of things, rather than just going out there and saying what the correct answer from your point of view is. Sometimes, because we're moving fast, you get, like, you're thrown into giving, your point of view and just moving fast through things. But then you learn, then you lose, the diversity of opinions, and also the opportunity to coach your leaders and your leadership team, so they build the muscle of thinking, of alternative solutions by themselves.
Very interesting. I really like it, and yeah, I also agree with you what you mentioned about iterating systems, and it made me remind one of my professors at the university, Barry Beam, that he's basically the father of software engineering, and he talks about that. He has a book called the Spiral Model System, I think, and he talks about, and it's called the spiral because that is a process of an iterative process of, as you mentioned, um, having like a goal or a hypothesis and a prototype or a way to test it, and learn and make decisions based on risk and evidence. That I think that's also a key. Not always like on deadlines. People used to are very used to set deadlines and make decisions based on a deadline and not on evidence. If you don't have an evidence to prove that it is going to work, what he says is, hey, slow down or go for more evidence or make the decision to stop if the risk is too high. But yeah, definitely that way of thinking of iterating is really important, and depending on if it's, especially if something very new, right? Because if something that is pretty obvious, like I don't know, hamburger recipe, then yeah, you don't have to keep iterating. But if it's like in Wizeline creating a new AI system or something, definitely you need to iterate to learn. And and yeah, very interesting. And one thing that uh, I liked and I want to learn more is, what do you mean by institutionalizing what works? How does that looks like? Like you have a meeting and start evaluating what works and start creating like a standard for your team, or it's more decentralized, or how does it work?
Um, with my teams, I try to work in a way that there are no silos, and I think we're doing a very good job on that front. We have, staff meetings with different leaders from all the teams, from legal to people experienced, internal comms, IT. So we can all learn from each other and also be on the same page with what's going on. And it basically means, when you see that something is working, just replicate it where it can be replicated. And also be vocal about it, and just share that with the rest of the team, very, like, openly. Look, this is what we've done, this works, let's integrate it into our workflows. So it means that.
Very interesting. Yeah, definitely like a decentralized way of solving problems, right? Because it's not just Sol that comes up with every idea, but maybe someone in her team, and if that works, you know, share it with the others. Definitely a very good approach. More like
Yeah,
uh,
be fast in, I mean, if something works in your own life, it's the same thing, right? If you find that something works for you, then you try to do it again as many times as you can. The same goes with teams and the company and the workflows. When we find that something works well,
That's not
we need to be
really easy, right? That's not really easy, especially because it's easier top down, but it's not so easy from the bottom to the top of the company. And well, it's interesting that you have it like that in your team. And one other thing that well, I really like this one, and I want to dig a little bit deeper. What do you mean by learn it all mindset? What does it mean to learn it all? Like studying a lot of different topics. That was what you promote, or what?
no not all of them, because it would be like very difficult, but it relates to being curious and being open to learn. It goes back to always this learning mindset. So you could say that learn it all mindset, it would be like learning mindset, right?
Okay.
um
Yeah, like maybe
don't
the lawyers in your team going outside law, right? Maybe learning a little bit about
Definitely,
AI or something.
definitely, but it's not just going outside your field, but also to when I say learn it all mindset, there are some things before learning that are required. Being curious about learning, and also not thinking that you have all of the answers. If you think that you have all of the answers, you have nothing to learn. So just always having the doubt in your mind that there could be a better way of doing things. There could be a different way of looking at things, and that's not 100% related to moving out of your field.
Yeah,
It
like
means to
there's
continue
always a
evolving
way
your
to improve.
mindset, even in your own field, right? So that's what I mean. And when you go into conversations and when you are working with a team, having a learn it all mindset, it doesn't mean that you're going to learn everything from everyone. It means that you are open to learning, and that you don't go there to the conversation thinking that you have already all the answers.
I like it. Yeah, definitely. And well, I now understand better what you mean. And yeah, it's from a book that I read, and that's the central concept. That is, the book is called The Fatal Conceit, or The Fatal Arrogance. And is that point where someone thinks they know more than everybody else. And that's the fatal point, because that's the point where they got stuck or destroy their company or whatever. That's the point. And that also is connected to the founder of a company where that I really like, that is called Udacity. And the founder is called Sebastian Thrun. And he says that basically what he says is that experts are experts of the past, and they don't know what's the future. And that's the number one mistake that experts make. And that was a mistake that he made, because he's actually the founder, the godfather of self-driving cars, and he did that with Stanford. And the story is that when he was approached by, I think, Larry Page, or well, a founder from Google, and that founder told him, "Okay, you made this with Stanford, now create it with Google." And he said, that cannot be done for, okay, for maybe this small prototype for Stanford in a desert where we won the competition. Okay, but in a real use case on the streets of San Francisco, definitely not. And that's when he discovered that he was an expert on the past and on the future. And then Larry Page, I think, convinced him to try it for real in Google. And he actually did it and proved him wrong. So yeah,
We all have
proved
this
himself.
bias, and we all have this bias, and it's also related to how our brain works, without being a neuroscientist or any expert on the field. But there's always like this tendency of the brain to trying to like put less effort into every task, right? So there's a bias of going back to what we've already tried in the past, of what worked in the past. But reinvention is key.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
and
you know
especially if you are the top expert in the world or something, right?
100%, yes.
And now I want to go to another part or section of this podcast that I really like and is very useful, and is the career part. And so, why don't you tell us a little bit more about what was the biggest challenge that you faced in your career, and what lessons did you learn from it?
The biggest challenge that I had was when I was appointed general counsel of Globant. It was early on in my career, and actually I was quite young, and I had the opportunity of, the CEO trusting in me and my potential after having worked in England for some years. But that was definitely a big challenge, because it was a public company with all that it requires, already very large company, operating in many countries. So heading legal and transforming every moment. So that was a big challenge for me. And it was also a big, growth milestone. Um, and
And what
and
what
what
do you
was the,
think
se-
was
the second
what
question?
was the key to overcome that challenge?
I could not say that there's just one key to doing that. But I will say something that it's probably not the most popular, or like the cliche, but working hard. To be honest, preparing for every meeting, doing your homework, making sure that you've read the materials before you go into a call. Maybe spend some time thinking what is it that you want to take out of that meeting or that call, write it down, make sure that you cover it. So I would say being focused, working hard. Um, it's nothing, is magical. It requires some effort to be done. So that's one of the main things that I would say um, made me successful in that challenge. Just putting the hours and the effort and the dedication that it required.
Very interesting and definitely very valuable, and a very big challenge. And so, one thing that I really like, and I think it's really important, and you mentioned it, is the mindset. Mindset is what I think defines success. You can have a lot of talent, but definitely if you don't have the mindset, that talent can go to waste. What do you think are your top success rules, and that you can share with us, and that maybe you would share with your children?
So in addition to what we have already mentioned, of remaining curious, open to learn, not believing that you have all of the answers, but with your ears very open to other perspectives. In addition to all of that, I would say that, and trying to move fast in the way of, not in the way of like underestimating risks, always in consideration and taking informed decisions, but not waiting for things to be like 100% perfect to make progress. But in addition to that, I also value, and this is something that I've told, it's like a rule in our team, or our teams, is substance over hype. So it's not about things just looking flashy, or looking nice, or putting a message out there, but also the real impact of what we're doing, and the real change, or the real um, value behind of every initiative, and making sure that what we're putting out there actually, has the value that it needs, and it's not just propaganda. So that's one move. Everyone knows it, substance over hype. So I would add that also as one of the keys, I would say.
I like it, and I definitely agree that the impact, or I don't know really how to say it, but yeah, more than just the form, what's really the core of an issue, not just the presentation, like the core ideas or principles or impact, as you mentioned, yes, is really important. And what would you say is the most valuable career advice that you have received or that you have and that really made an impact on your career?
I will say this one, just because I have to choose one, and because we've gone through many of the, more professional related attitudes or behaviors. So I would say one of the advices that I received from my prior boss in my prior life was always keep some time, for just leisure time, or just, not doing anything, because that's when ideas come. Because it was a moment where I was like very busy. So I was like meeting after meeting, lots of, work, and always, occupied with something from work, thinking about, and reading through things and documents. So he was very intentional in saying, save a slot to just be calm and not be focused 100% in something, because that's very important for leaders. That's where, new ideas, creativity, and also it, like, allows you to have better, or to make better decisions. So that was a really good advice. It also prevents burnout, and something that I follow as well. I try to have that balance in my life, not just because I need it from a personal point of view, but also because it makes me a better leader.
Interesting. So, like, also taking time to for leisure, or also for exploring other ideas. What do you mean?
Taking time to go for a walk, taking time to read a book, maybe non-related to the specific thing that you're doing at work, taking time to do something that you usually don't do, because when you go out of the typical routine, that's when your brain starts thinking differently. You shake it a little bit, and you come up with new alternatives to things. You refresh somehow your thought process.
That's a very good idea. Yeah, definitely that has happened to me where, uh, for example, taking a course that had not a direct impact at the time. It was more for curiosity and was one of the most impactful things in my life, definitely. And to close this great episode, and based on what I told you at the beginning of my regret of not asking this question to the CEO of that previous company, what does a great Wizeline employee look like from your point of view, and what should that person be doing, and with what mindset?
Well, look, one of the things that I value the most, and we value a lot at Weinstein, is the ability to learn, and the ability to learn fast. Because, as you know, we're in a moment where new things are, happening, and things are evolving quite fast. So it's not as important to know everything, rather than being able to learn fast. And to be able to learn fast, it's not just about, intelligence. It's also, and as we've mentioned during the podcast, about having this learning mindset, and being open, and not thinking that you have all of the answers, and learning from everything that goes through your way. And also trying to proactively find the resources, trying to proactively grow, learn, and evolve, not just wait until someone handles you a course, or someone handles you, right, um, a way, or a method, or a tool to learn new things. But also, having the proactivity to go and look for that learning and that growth yourself. That's something super valuable, because if you have that, the proactivity and the openness to learn, then you can go like super far. But if you don't have it, then it's very difficult to instill. So that's one of the main things. And the second one, I would say, it's ownership also. Owning owning the challenges, not walking away from problems, but rather, owning being part of the solution, owning your growth. And At the end of the day, we all make Wizeline. So we are all owners of, of the future of our company. So that's a mindset that we value in our employees.
Very interesting. And I definitely think that the first one is really valuable, especially for people that are, let's say, more junior, because sometimes people that are junior or really, yeah, let's say like a junior, they don't feel like they can make a lot of impact. And definitely what they can do is be proactive and go talk as I did. I just reached out to Sol, just go reached out and be proactive. If you have a good idea, definitely maybe that can be a way, even if it's not something that you think um, is that, yeah, try it. Why not? Let's say like that.
100%. Yes, 100%. And we're trying to give as many tools as we can for people to own their growth, both from learning resources, pathways, certifications. We have a lot of programs in that respect, from our recognition programs, boosters, which is something that you apply for the recognition whenever you've done something. It's not dependent on a manager or a leader um, viewing your contributions, but yourself, you come up and say, hey, I've done this, and you get these recognitions which impact your career progression because are taking into consideration for salary reviews and for promotions. So we are also giving the resources, all that we can, and going back to iterating, we will continue improving, so that Wizeliners can own their career. But of course, we also need the attitude from Wizeliners to want to own it, which in most cases we see that because we have great Wizeliners in the company.
That's really great. I really like that advice, and I hope that people take it if they have a good idea or they want to try something new in their career. Definitely, they could give it a try at Wiseline, and if it's definitely something valuable, you'll be surprised if you reach out. You, I'm pretty sure that maybe you can do it. And well, so thank you very much for your time. I think this was a great masterclass on these different topics, and thank you very much.
I know. Thank you, Alvaro. It was very nice to discuss with you.
Thank you, and thank you to our audience, and see you in the next episode.